everyone, and welcome to Between the Lines with Arianne, where we explore how classic literature reflects real-world communication and power dynamics. Today, we are diving into George Orwell's Animal Farm, chapters 5, 6, and 7 specifically, which is the point in the story where the animal's dreams of equality begins to unravel. We'll explore how personalities, leadership styles, and communication breakdowns transform Animal Farm into a dictatorship, and how these same dynamics appear in our own workplaces, schools, and communities. Without further ado, let's begin with the storyline of specifically chapters 5, 6, and 7. In chapter 5, we see growing tension between Snowball and Napoleon. Both are intelligent pigs, but their personalities clash. Snowball is passionate, articulate, and visionary. He wants to build a windmill to generate electricity and improve life for all animals. Napoleon, however, is calculating and power-driven. He secretly raises 9 puppies to become his private guards. Their conflict reaches a breaking point during a heated meeting. Just as Snowball is about to win the animals' support for the windmill, Napoleon releases the dogs to chase him away. With Snowball gone, Napoleon seizes control, and communication on the farm becomes one-directional. In chapter 6, Napoleon declares that the animals will continue building the windmill, ironically the same project he had rejected when Snowball suggested it. The workload increases, however, rations decrease, and yet Squealer convinces everyone that things are better than ever. Then comes chapter 7, where hardship deepens. The animals face starvation, the hens rebel against Napoleon's orders, and rumors spread that Snowball is secretly sabotaging the farm. Using fear and propaganda, Napoleon executes animals accused of being traitors. The dream of equality has completely collapsed, replaced by fear and manipulation. The events of chapter 7 devastate the animals both physically and emotionally. After the rebellion of the hens, Napoleon cuts off their food supply until, quote, 9 hens died in the meantime, showing how starvation is used as punishment and control. The animals realize that speaking out has deadly consequences. When Napoleon begins executing animals accused of working with Snowball, the text says the dogs promptly tore their throats out, and in a terrible voice, Napoleon demanded whether any other animal had anything to confess.
Who else is guilty? Stand up and confess!
This brutal scene fills the others with horror, as they now see that Napoleon will kill anyone who disobeys him. The passage continues, quote, the remaining animals, except the pigs and dogs, crept away in a body. They were shaken and miserable. This demonstrates how fear replaces unity. The animals no longer trust each other or the leadership they once believed in. Finally, the chapter's tone foreshadows the future. Quote, it seemed to them as though the farm had grown richer without making the animals themselves any richer, except of course for the pigs and the dogs. This line predicts the widening gap between the rulers and the ruled, hinting that the farm will continue to descend into tyranny and inequality. Now let's break down the personalities of the key figures and how their communication styles shape group dynamics. First on this list is Napoleon. He is an authoritarian leader, preferring control over collaboration. He uses coercive power, fear, violence, and secrecy. After chapter 5, he eliminates open meetings and replaces them with private decisions made by pigs. This reflects downward communication, where messages flow from leaders to subordinates with no feedback allowed. Second, we'll talk about Snowball. His leadership style contrasts sharply to that of Napoleon. Snowball encourages participative communication, where he holds debates, explains ideas, and tries to inspire others through logic and enthusiasm. His vision of the windmill represents transformational leadership, where a leader would motivate followers through shared goals. Unfortunately, in environments where fear and manipulation dominate, democratic communication struggles to survive. Now, Squealer is acting as a voice of propaganda. Squealer manipulates facts, twists language, and uses emotional appeal to control thought. For example, in Chapter 6, he convinces the animals that trading with humans and sleeping in beds are not violations of the commandments, but they've simply been misunderstood. His tactics reflect persuasion through emotion and repetition rather than reason. These three characters reveal that communication is never neutral. It reflects the power structures within any group or organization. As we're on to the third part in this segment, let's connect Animal Farm to real theories of group and organizational communication. Firstly, we'll start with systems theory. This theory views organizations as living systems where all parts must communicate and cooperate for the whole to function properly. Information should flow freely across all levels, ensuring balance and understanding. On Animal Farm, this system completely breaks down once Napoleon takes power. Instead of open meetings and collective decision-making, Napoleon makes all decisions privately, and Squealer becomes the only channel of communication. The text says it was announced that from now on, the Sunday morning meetings would come to an end. All questions relating to the work of the farm would be settled by a special committee of pigs, presided over by Napoleon himself. This isolation cuts off feedback from the other animals, leading to confusion and mistrust. The animals are, quote, working harder but understanding less. In real organizations, this happens when leaders stop listening, when top-down communication dominates innovation and moral decline because employees no longer feel valued or informed. Secondly, we'll speak about groupthink. Groupthink occurs when members of a group suppress dissent to maintain harmony or please authority. It leads to poor decisions because people stop thinking critically or offering alternative ideas. In chapters 6 and 7, the animals repeat slogans like, "Napoleon is always right" and "I will work harder." They accept every command, even when it contradicts what they previously knew, like believing that Snowball was a traitor or that food rations had not been reduced. Their silence and blind obedience show that disagreement is dangerous. This mirrors real-life workplaces or teams where employees fear being labeled disloyal or difficult if they question a leader's decisions. Over time, creativity dies and the group loses its ability to self-correct, exactly what happens on Animal Farm. Thirdly, power and leadership plays a large role in Animal Farm specifically.
Now, let's have no more of these useless meetings. Eh? From now on, I'll protect your interests. And I'll make your decisions.
There are 5 bases of power, including coercive, reward, legitimate, expert, and reference, which describe how leaders influence followers. Napoleon, for example, uses coercive power, ruling through threats and punishment. For example, using the dogs to enforce fear, and legitimate power, which comes from his position as leader. Snowball, in contrast, used expert power, which is his intelligence and strategic ideas like the windmill, and referent power, which is the respect and admiration he inspired. When Napoleon drives Snowball away, the balance of power shifts. Knowledge and innovation are replaced by fear and control. This parallels real-life organizations or governments where leaders silence experts or prioritize loyalty over competence, causing stagnation and corruption. Lastly, on this topic, I'll speak about organizational culture, which is shaped by shared beliefs, values, and norms. In healthy cultures, communication builds trust and unity. But when information is controlled or manipulated, culture becomes a tool of domination. By chapter 7, Squealer constantly rewrites history to favor Napoleon. The commandments change from "no animal shall kill any other animal" to "no animal shall kill any other animal without cause." This rewriting of rules and history creates confusion and forces the animals to doubt their own memories. This reflects information control in organizations or political systems when leadership censors data, revises records, or spreads propaganda to maintain authority. Over time, employees or citizens becomes desensitized and dependent on official messages, losing their ability to think critically. So after we've talked about personalities, communication styles, theories, what does this mean for us in real life? In many organizations, like schools, offices, governments, communication can reflect similar patterns. When one leader dominates decision making, or when people fear to question authority, communication turns from collaboration to control. For example, in workplaces where managers only deliver orders and never invite feedback, creativity dissipates. Employees become like the animals, overworked, unheard, and uncertain of the truth. Conversely, when leaders encourage open communication, feedback, and shared vision, teams thrive. Transparency builds trust, and people feel empowered to contribute ideas, just like Snowball tried to do before he was silenced. This is important because Animal Farm reminds us that in any group, communication isn't just about words, it's about who controls the narrative and whose voices are allowed to be heard. This was really a mouthful. Chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Animal Farm mark the tragic turning point where idealism gives way to tyranny. Orwell shows that when power becomes centralized, communication transforms from dialogue to propaganda. In real life, the same is true. Once organizations stop listening to their members, corruption, fear, and misunderstanding take root. Effective communication, that is, transparent, inclusive, and honest communication, is the foundation of healthy relationships, teams, and societies. So, as you reflect on Animal Farm, ask yourself this question: are we communicating to share truth or to protect power? Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Lines with Arianne. Join us next time as we explore more stories that reveal the power and the danger of human communication.